in logistics, as we all know, things happen. Things miss the flight, flat tire, whatever. So you want to have the ability to call someone and get answers to your problem, right? You want to be able to have an answer versus, hey, my freight's in London. It's stuck in the BA's automated warehouse and it's lost, and it's going to be lost for 6 to 12 months, but I know it's in London.
Hello, and welcome to Speaking of Supply Chain, where we explore trends, current events, and innovations impacting the logistics and supply chain industries. I'm your host, Ellen Wood. As global supply chains grow more complex and capacity becomes harder to predict, the pressure is on freight forwarders to find smarter, faster, and more cost-effective ways to move cargo. In this episode, we're diving into how technology, specifically AI-driven cargo pooling and digital platforms, are transforming air freight logistics. We'll explore how companies like Aircon are helping small and mid-sized forwarders compete at scale, stay agile during disruptions, and unlock new levels of efficiency across quoting, booking, and beyond. Joining me today is Chris Condon, CEO and founder of Aircon. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I am really looking forward to this conversation today because it is top of mind for a lot of businesses right now who are trying to get their product everywhere. But let's take a moment and get to know you a little bit more. So our icebreaker question today is, if you could only eat one dessert for the rest of your life, what would it be?
It'd be a raspberry cream pie.
Wow, I've never heard of raspberry cream pie, let alone tasted one. Where would one find such a delicacy?
I'm originally from Wisconsin, so I assume somewhere in the Midwest. I love raspberries, but I don't like the tartness of raspberries in a pie, and so the cream kind of tones that down a little bit and makes it fantastic in my mind.
You know, that's really interesting because I prefer the tartness when I'm eating berries. And so because of that, I don't like them cooked. I only like fresh berries. It's just a weird hang up I have. I don't like cooked fruit. So pies are almost completely out for me.
Which is okay.
I would have to say I might throw a lowball here and say if I could only eat one dessert for the rest of my life, it would probably be ice cream and then just leave it at that. But if I had to get specific, butter pecan ice cream. I could
Butter
stand
pecan.
the rest of my life. If that was the only sweet I could have, I would be fine.
Gotcha. I know that makes a lot of sense. Do you put anything on top of it, right? In terms of like chocolate?
Well, if I have the choice, yeah. My son puts chocolate on top of his, and it's actually really good, butter pecan with chocolate on top.
Yeah.
But yeah, building an ice cream sundae is always fun.
Yep. And as a child, I grew up on a dairy farm, or not on a dairy farm, but my family are all dairy farmers, and so making homemade ice cream is a very fond memory with my grandpa, my aunt, my aunt and uncles, and that kind of stuff. So ice cream is good.
The old crank ice cream maker, or because I
I
have done
think
that. It's the
have
way to
done
keep
that.
the kids busy.
That's right. We might have been maybe upper class, and we had a plug-in one that it did it for us. So
Yeah. Well, enough about ice cream. Let's talk about air freight. That's quite the switch. So, what is it that is driving the demand for smarter cargo pooling when it comes to air freight?
a lot of different things are driving the demand, but in essence, it's really how you can control your costs in air cargo. It's different than any other mode of transportation. If you're in air freight, obviously, you're paid or you're charged on a chargeable weight, which is either your scale weight or your volume weight, and the larger of the two is your chargeable weight. So if you can combine those, you can actually reduce your chargeable weight by up to 40 to 50%.
Okay. So, how does this work? How does Aircon work for your clients, and what is the value that it's delivering? Because your focus is not on, the obviously the larger enterprise organizations have departments dedicated to this. So this is really for the smaller guy who doesn't have that internal team able to sit and crunch numbers all day and figure out the best way to do it, it seems.
For sure. Yeah, the consolidation of cargo is not a new concept. All your larger freight forwarders do it. They obviously have the scale, they have the consistent volume, they have the buying rates with the airline. They have all that. So we are doing that to really support multiple freight forwarders in one, so they don't have to have their own volume or their own capacities. They can leverage other people's volumes and other or the industry's volume and the industry movement. And then with our other product being Captain Cargo, which is our AI agent, allows routings. And when does consolidation make sense? Is speed matters? Does the rate matter? Direct, indirect, all that kind of good stuff is really the driving force behind what we're doing today. Is really more the art of the quote, not so much the action of the actual shipment.
So one thing that I've talked about on other podcast episodes, and one of the things is that collaboration of companies, the individual companies working together in order to make the logistics work for them. And you touched on that there just a moment ago, where they don't have to have the whole thing figured out on their own. They can leverage other forwarders. Do you find that they're amenable to that, or is there? I mean, is there still competition instead of collaboration, or are they coming around and realizing that they can't do this alone?
It's kind of funny as I believe that people do business with people. I also believe that people are very somewhat short-sighted in terms of looking at this type of collaboration, right? What is my rate per shipment, right? Or on this particular shipment, they're not really looking to be collaborative in terms of over the next 12 months or 24 months, which is a challenge for these small to medium-sized freight forwarders in my mind to really compete at scale. Because really, if you have consistent business, then you can actually do a better job of planning your staff. You can do better planning, all those things around there. But because you're so transactional, it becomes extremely difficult to plan, 3 years, 4 years down the line.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. So what are some of the improvements that it has been able to bring, whether it's, in quoting or booking or tracking these shipments?
Yeah. So we're starting with really with the quoting side is really where we're putting most of our emphasis on today. Obviously, we're going to get to booking. We're going to get to track and trace, which I'll say visibility, which I think is somewhat laughable because really, who really cares where your freight's at? It's when am I going to get my hand on it and what's it going to cost me, right? But we are starting with quoting for a couple different reasons. One is we think it's the tech is not out there today in terms of how do you win business. And I use this example a lot with our customers is if you have a customer that ships out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and a little shout out to Wisconsin because I'm a Packer fan, so go Pack go. Most people will look at Milwaukee to Chicago, Chicago to London, London to Joburg, for example, because there's just a lot more capacity out of there. There's, the rates are somewhat stable out of that market. And let's say they're using British Airways as their carrier. That's just how they quote it. And it could be a matter of their ability or inability to know what else is out there, or what is the summer schedule for British Airways, what is the and whatnot. So our quoting or our AI agent, which again we're calling Captain Cargo, will look at Milwaukee. What is the area that it should go around? What is your requirements, right? And there's some things to play with this in terms of whatnot. So maybe BA has a direct flight out of Cincinnati at half the cost, right? Or what if the customer doesn't need it in 3 to 4 days? They need it in 10 or something less than or faster than ocean or truck can get it there. And a lot of times we believe that freight forwarders a lot of times don't grow their business because they don't understand the actual need of the customer. They're trying to quote it based on what they believe the best service is or how they can look good. That's one of the reasons why I think there's all this geopolitical stuff that's going around and all these different things really help the freight forwarder because it'll help decommoditize them and really show value that they understand different routes, they understand how to move the freight, they understand the regulations or regulatorial side of it, and then can actually support their customers in a manner other than Hong Kong to Seattle or Hong Kong to or wherever to Long Beach, which those routes are somewhat established for the last 15, 20 years.
One thing you mentioned a moment ago was that, when you're looking at air freight, it's because you don't have the time to wait for ocean cargo. Is that always the case, that it's something that is a time is of the essence, or are there other reasons why smaller companies would choose air freight over another mode?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people are misunderstand air freight as a kind of a oh moment, right? Like, hey,
Yeah.
manufacturing's down or whatever, and they want to pay more, right? It's kind of funny. It's like air freight is only 1% of global trade, right? If you and by volume, right? Obviously, most of it's ocean, but there's lots of different reasons why someone move air freight. Could be security, could be speed, could be they can't do the condensation in an ocean container. Um, or it could be just that the production can't keep up, and there's enough margin in it to um, move via air versus ocean. You look at like an iPhone or a lot of medical devices, automotive, where just in time becomes, and I don't pretend to understand all the reasons why, but like I'll give you an example.
Sure.
We move corrugated. For one of our customers has moves corrugated out of the Midwest to India every week, a couple times a week. Um, and obviously it's not just plain corrugated, right? There's obviously it's coated with something, and it's for the medical industry, right, of some sort. And so for whatever reason, the cost of manufacturing in America and flying it to India is more cost effective, or whatever reason they do it. So it's not a moment. It's more of by design in most cases. And another thing I think most people don't understand or don't think about is most of the cargo globally is moved on passenger aircrafts, right? It's not UPS, FedEx, or cargo only aircraft. Um, Most of it is in the belly of a passenger aircraft, which becomes gravy for in essence, really becomes gravy for the airline because they're making most of their money on the passenger side of it. But it also makes it more difficult because there's not a lot of rideshare agreements, if you will, for cargo like they do for passengers, because it's just not set up that way today.
Right, right. No, that makes sense. So, where has Captain Cargo Aircon been able to make like a significant difference? Can you tell us a case study or an example of, where it changed the way your client saw air freight?
Yeah, so the consolidation part is relatively easy. We have customers that we use Dallas to London a lot. We're based out of Dallas, so Dallas to London. London is 29% of all U.S. exports goes to London as the first stop. It's also why the data is not a very good in our industry. Um, but we have 3 or 4 freight forwarders that ship out of Dallas every week, every Thursday. They were paying, let's say, $1 for ease of math. Um, we're able to buy at roughly the same price from the airline, but by combining these 3 or 4 freight forwarders, I'm able to offer them between, let's say 80 cents to 75, 80 cents a kilo, and I'm still making, 10 to 15% on top of that. So it's a win for everybody involved. In addition to just the rate, you're less likely to get bumped from the airline because obviously if baggage is or bags, whatever, fill up the plane, they're more likely to remove a carton or a pallet versus a ULD. There's less damage to your product, which allows you to be more predictable on your transit time, right? So if you are sensitive to I got to be there in 4 days, you have a much higher chance of doing that through a ULD build or through consolidation. And so we've done that. We have two big lanes that we do is JFK to Indy and Dallas to London are the 2 biggest lanes that we do today, and it's working at scale.
So that really is leveling this playing field for those smaller businesses to
Yep.
give them the ability to play against the larger players in their industries.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And it's one of those things where if you think of um, these big large freight forwarders that continue to buy, you think of like Schenker, DSV, Kugenagel, Apex, Expeditors. pick one out of your that you know of, Siva. Every time that they buy or try to consolidate these freight forwarders into one, there's 5 to 10 other freight forwarders that pop up, right? They may call them logistics companies or whatever, but we believe it's because people do business with people, right? And in logistics, as we all know, things happen, right? Things miss the flight, things, flat tire, whatever. So you want to have the ability to call someone and get answers to a solution to your problem, right? Either your manufacturing, your customer, whatever. You want to be able to have an answer versus, hey, my freight's in London. It's stuck in the BA's automated warehouse and it's lost, and it's going to be lost for 6 to 12 months, but I know it's in London.
No, that I laugh because that makes me think of advice that has recently been given to marketing. So when we're forwarding our freight for trade shows and things, one of the new industry standards is to get some air tags and pop an air tag on the side of your carton, so or tuck it inside so that you can find it, because they get lost so often. They get misplaced in the warehouse, and you want to be able to find it.
No, it's very, very true. It's extremely true. And what's funny about that is people, it's kind of like insurance on air freight, right? Or on cargo in general, right? It's pretty cheap, right? It's, if you really think about it, it's like, why would someone spend, 10 cents per 100 or 20 cents per 100, whatever the cost is, for when they're shipping $1 million worth of product, and realize, particularly in ocean, stuff goes in the ocean all the time.
Oh yeah.
Right? And it's like, for pennies, you can insure that and become whole, but we're so focused on that transaction of that particular container, that particular cost, and the companies are siloed, right? So a lot of times the logistics people in a company aren't the same, or aren't bonused, or aren't measured the same as the marketing side, or the whatever the silo is, and it gets misaligned very quickly, right, in terms of what's best for the company versus what's best for the individual.
All right. So what about disruptions? So we've talked a little bit about, lost cargo, but when other disruptions are affecting the supply chain in general, what agility does this enable for those smaller companies?
That's a great point, and something that is very difficult for me to articulate, but I'm going to try. So really, it's about knowledge of what's out there, right? So these small to medium-sized freight forwarders may have a great network from US to the EU, or US to the Middle East, or whatever, but they don't necessarily have a global network. So Aircon is really the backstop to that, from our platform marketplace consolidation standpoint, is the backstop. So you can provide a solution to your customer in real time. So like, we can give you a door-to-door quote anywhere to anywhere in the world in less than a minute at a competitive wholesale rate, right? So now you can compete at scale if you get the business. And then when the customer books it, we do that logic in our tech again. So again, taking that Milwaukee standpoint, is if we have to have it by a certain date, we're going to give you the probability and predictability of through Chicago and through Cincinnati, and let your customer decide what the best solution is. Another scenario that we've done is, you think of like a UPS airline, which everybody knows parcel takes priority over cargo for UPS, right? Everybody knows it, and you just kind of understand it, right? It's going to take you between 5 and 10 days to get it to London, for example, or Dubai. And that might be okay for your customer because it's 25% of the cost of Qatar or American. And so giving these solutions to the people that are actually buying the service allows you to provide a better service to your customer, and to keep your customer inside your four walls versus looking somewhere else. About 50% of our customers are actually truckers or brokers of truckers, which is kind of interesting to me. And they might only do 1% of their volume is air freight, but they don't want their customer to go from a trucker A to a forwarder, because maybe that forwarder also does trucking, right? So the more you can keep your fingers on them, the better. And that's what we're really trying to do. Is one, we have a global network, a wholesale, no retail forwarders, no retail truckers, all on a wholesale level, which again allows you to think bigger versus the network that you have built.
Well, and one thing I want to ask, just because we dealt with it this spring, all these storms that have come through, some massive storms, big ones that were significant tornadoes across the Midwest. What happens when, is it that agile where someone had already planned something? Now we've got all this disruption, there are planes grounded, flights aren't flying. How agile can it be when the weather is involved?
So, we haven't built this yet, but it is on our product roadmap. It's really our third AI agent that we're building, which will be, we're not really sure what to call it yet, or a visibility agent, exception management, whatever you want to call it. And so the scenario that we talk about internally is, and I'll bring it back to the weather part of it, is let's say you're shipping something to Joburg, right? And you're going Chicago, London, Joburg on Virgin Airlines. And it misses the flight for whatever reason from London to Joburg. And Virgin Airline only has 2 flights a week. This happens at midnight, our time. Our agent will either rebook it, depending on your urgency, on another carrier, right? So we either pull it out of there and put it on another carrier, or we'll rebook it for that next one, depending on the requirements. So, what the thought process is that we will, in real time, identify and take action while you're sleeping, right? So you have a solution, or at least you know what the problem is, and you know what the possible solutions are when you come in the morning or to your customers. So it's not a matter of it's 8 o'clock, where's my shipment? Oh, it didn't make that flight last night. Oh, when's the next schedule, right? What are the other airlines that go London to Joburg? What are the, again,
It's
not a lot of
sitting on the
people
tarmac.
Right, exactly right. Right, exactly right. So our AI agent through Aircon will then give you those solutions. Okay, same as is, or hey, you want to rebook it? It's going to cost you 10x or 5x, whatever the cost is. And now you can make that decision what's best for you as the buyer, because maybe, again, using the UPS scenario, maybe you don't need it tomorrow. You need it this week or next week, and that next flight is okay. Yeah, right. So it's all about giving power to where the power belongs, in my opinion, and letting the freight forwarder become relevant, again, in terms of their knowledge, in terms of the regs and all those things, and really provide service over rate, which is what I think we'll see in the next year to 18 months. You saw it during COVID, to be fair, right? When the capacity shrunk and people weren't flying. It wasn't about the rate. It was about getting capacity. It was about routes. It was about these things. And if you didn't make money during COVID in logistics, you probably shouldn't be in the space.
You know what? As disastrous as it was for the world, it was great for our industry.
It's funny, as I talked to some freight forwarders that started, or logistics companies that started during that time, and they really started for ocean, right? And it's funny because we don't understand why we're not making money. Well, 10% on 30,000 is real dollars. 10% on 1,000, you probably need to have other service offerings.
Right. That's not all that much.
Right. It's just reality, right?
It absolutely is. So that brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you so much, Chris, for the introduction to this amazing new tool that you have, and this opportunity for some of these smaller and medium-sized businesses to capitalize on the agility that is available to the larger players in the market. You've really opened a door for these organizations to really up their supply chain game.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the fact that you can see that vision as well, because it's we think it's important.
It very much is. The little guys need all the help they can get.
Agreed.
If our listeners out there have a suggestion for a topic or would like to be a guest on the show, we would love to hear from you. You can reach out at podcast@mebach.com at any time. As always, thanks for listening to Speaking of Supply Chain. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review us on whichever podcast platform you prefer. We're on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Spotify.